Alright, I know, before you go down to the comment section and start ripping me for me thinking that Baylor is better than Gonzaga, just hear me out in this video. I'm gonna make some good compelling arguments on why I personally believe Baylor is better than Gonzaga. It's a shame they didn't play this year because then I wouldn't have to make a video like this. I still really believe in this Baylor team and I want to talk about it with you guys. But before I begin, if you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button for me, hit the notification bell, and leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Alright, just let me know down in the comment section who you think is better, Baylor or Gonzaga. I'm very curious. That's the whole premise of this video. They're the two best teams in college basketball by a wide margin, and it's become a fascinating debate, and one that I don't think enough people are talking about. First off, in this video, I want to gush over Scott Drew. What an incredible coach. Not many people realize this, but Baylor basketball back in the early 2000s when he took over was in like a disaster mode. It was very bad there. They had a horrible situation. You'll have to look it up, but the job he's done there to turn Baylor into one of the best programs in college basketball, like one of the best in the past couple of years as well. Huge props to him. Doesn't get enough credit where it's due. Also, when these big jobs open, no one ever recommends his name, but he should be recommended for like maybe when a North Carolina opens one day. I could see him fitting very well into there. But you know, huge props for him for putting this team together. They fight very hard. Like, Baylor is one of those teams that they're aggressive the entire game, and I don't think that that gets enough credit, and especially in today's like world of basketball where, you know, if I'm being honest, not a lot of guys put in the effort for a full 40 minutes. Baylor does. Like, the thing about Baylor is that on the defensive end, they play with such great energy and they communicate very well and they switch, and they also give a good effort on every single play, which is a huge props to Scott Drew for coaching them. And that's why I honestly think that they could possibly beat Gonzaga, is because of how well they play on defense, and they also are really good at scoring the basketball. It's just everything you would want in a national championship team, in my opinion. They have great effort. And I know Gonzaga has played a loaded non-conference schedule, but I do think that something that's going to be important for Baylor is that they've played the Big 12 all year, basically. And they're going to be playing the Big 12 leading into the tournament. And I think that that's going to help test them and get them battle tested, honestly, for the NCAA tournament. I know Gonzaga, they've played a lot of good teams this year. More than most people are even used to with Gonzaga. Everybody says they play a cupcake schedule. And I still think that the West Coast Conference is pretty competitive, but it's nothing like the Big 12. And I think that Baylor constantly playing these Big 12 teams heading into the tournament, it's going to have them prepared for those grueling nights stuck in Indianapolis more than I think that any other team's really going to be prepared for. Scott Drew took over in 2003. And before he took over, Baylor, I think, just had one NCAA tournament appearance since 1950, and they now have made 8 of the last 12 NCAA tournaments, and including 4 appearances in the Sweet 16 and beyond. They've made a couple Elite 8s. As a team, Baylor is averaging 121.4 points per 100 possessions, which is 5th in the country, and surrendering only 86.6 points per game, which is also 8th in the country. I mean, Baylor is the only team with an adjusted offensive efficiency rating and an adjusted defensive efficiency rating that both rank in the top 5 in college basketball. And that's important for an NCAA tournament run. You have to play well on both sides of the ball. If you don't defend, I mean, you're gonna be in trouble. And Baylor does defend, and they also can score the ball with ease. They've got a lot of great shooters, a lot of great guards, and even their bigs. They might not be like the biggest team down low, but they can still effectively play defense. They switch very well. Their continuity is honestly one of the best in college basketball, and even their bigs can score down low as well. So they can overwhelm you with pressure on the offensive side of the ball, and they defend up high on the defensive side of the ball. They pressure you up top. Honestly, this team wrecks havoc against other teams. I don't think the final score really ever shows how big of a beatdown it is, because Baylor, they really do punish teams, but the final score is always a lot closer than it seems. I don't know why that is with Baylor, but it just is what it is. They definitely play much better than the score would indicate. Baylor has won every game this year by double digits except for that Kansas game. And earlier this season, they beat down Illinois on a neutral court. And I think that game was in Indianapolis. So Baylor, they're going to be ready to go back to Indianapolis to play and try to win a Final Four, honestly, or at least make it. Their defense is for real. They're the best team in college basketball right now, in my opinion. And even their offense is smooth. They score at ease, honestly. They really are a pleasure to watch. This team moves the ball very well. And I want to talk about some of their players. Like, to have a lead guard like Jared Butler, who is one of my favorite players in college basketball, He's definitely my favorite player this year. Last year, if Obi Toppin didn't exist, Jared Butler would 100% have been my favorite player. I think that he's the perfect guard for a college basketball team. He doesn't have to take the final shot. He doesn't have to lead the team in scoring, but when they need him to, he 100% can put the team on his back and do that. He's a very clutch player. His game is very smooth. He's also one of the calmest players, if that makes sense. Like, he doesn't panic. He plays very well under pressure, and he's like the perfect player to honestly carry Baylor if they ever need him to, which they don't, because they have other guards like Maceo Teague and Davion Mitchell, who are also fantastic. Like, this is why I love Baylor. They have such a good backcourt. And then they also have a guy like Adam Flagler. They also have a guy like Matthew Meyer, who comes off the bench, and he's like the best wild card player I've ever seen. Dude does it all, and you sit there and wonder how the heck he does it, but he somehow does. And then having like a guy like Mark Vital, who is also a guard, but he is definitely a big, who can defend. You know, he can even get a bucket there. He plays very well at times on the offensive side of the ball, even though he's more of like a defensive guy. And then having like somebody like a Flo Thamba. I mean, Baylor has a very well-rounded team. Again, they don't have like a big, like a Luka Garza or like a Kofi Coburn. Like, they don't have that. You know, in college basketball, you don't need that. You just need really like a very solid starting four that has great continuity, and I think Baylor has that. They had it last year. Like, if the NCAA tournament didn't get canceled last year, Baylor probably would have made the Final Four. They were that good. And yes, they did lose some guys this year. They lost a guy like Freddie Gillespie. Tristan Clark isn't playing this year, sadly, because of injuries. So honestly, like, this is one of the best teams I've ever seen in the past 2 years. They've, like, this team exemplifies what you would want with a college basketball team. Play very well together. I freaking love them, guys. I really do. But you're probably sitting there asking yourself why I think they're better than Gonzaga. And I think it, like, the defensive side of the ball, I think that's where I really like them. The way they pressure you, they attack you up top, like I've mentioned. And I just think that when they would play a team like Gonzaga that likes to get up and down the court, I think that Baylor can put a little bit more pressure on them. And I've seen Gonzaga play, like, they struggle under pressure sometimes. Not just this team, but just Mark Few's teams in the past. And I think that Baylor could do that. I'm pretty sure these teams like played secretly like over the past couple of seasons. Like, Mark Few and Scott Drew are good friends. So like, this is gonna be, if they play in the national championship game, that would honestly be like a dream matchup for me. Especially, I'm getting sick and tired of the Blue Bloods. What a refreshing year this is. I don't even think North Carolina, Kentucky, or Duke are ranked at the moment, which is just outstanding because, you know, I get tired of seeing the same old teams win it every year. So seeing like a team like Baylor, or definitely like Gonzaga, a West Coast Conference team, even if they are still a powerhouse in my opinion, it's just going to be such a refreshing feel for an NCAA tournament that is going to be really different this year because every game's going to be played in the state of Indiana, which I think is important because Scott Drew is from Indiana. He was a coach at Valpo. His dad was the coach at Valpo. His brother was a coach at Valpo, which is in Indiana. I mean, I think Scott Drew he went to Butler. So this is like the homecoming for Baylor. And they've already played once there this year. So this will be a homecoming for Baylor, even if it's going to be in Indianapolis, which is nowhere near Baylor. Obviously, Baylor's in Texas. And even if you do think Gonzaga is better, I think that gap is super close. It's way closer than the gap between Baylor and Gonzaga from Iowa, who Iowa, in my opinion, I think would be the third best team in college basketball based on the way they score the ball. I don't think they defend well enough to be one of the top two teams, but I still think that the gap's very close. And no one talks about Baylor, in my opinion, and I think it's because they have such a small fan base. I think that's a big thing, that Baylor doesn't have like the fan support that some of these other schools have. And even if their offense isn't as good as Gonzaga's, I still think it's pretty close based on the way their guards play. They also play both sides of the ball. And when they play Gonzaga, Baylor will probably slow that game down. Gonzaga is one of those teams that just want to get up and down. It reminded me a lot of 2009 North Carolina that just wants to score, 100 points every game. But I think that Baylor will be able to slow them down, play a different style of basketball than Gonzaga would be used to. And defense wins in the long run. I mean, look at the past two national champions. Villanova won in 2018 and Virginia won in 2019. Sadly, we haven't gotten we didn't get a 2020 NCAA tournament champion. But both those teams played great on offense. You can't disregard that. They were outstanding, and they both played up and down. But the thing about both those teams, they defended in the long run, and I think that Baylor will do that. Baylor can even explode on offense. They're a top 5 to 10 offense already in college basketball. They have guards that can score all over the court. They can score from 3, they can score from 2, and they can keep up with the Gonzaga, in my opinion. They shoot the 3 very well. They have 6 guys who average at least 8 points, and Baylor's top 5 scorers shoot 39% from 3, and they take a lot of 3s. It's not like they don't take 3s. So to have an offense like that, they can keep up with Gonzaga. And when Baylor Baylor needs their defense to step up, they absolutely do, and I keep stressing this because that's so important for March. They force turnovers, and their guards are all active. They don't take plays off. Scott Drew has drilled that into their heads, and it's just how Baylor operates on defense. Now, I do want to admit there are some problems with Baylor. It seems like a lot of their games, they do play kind of close when it comes to one of the better teams in college basketball, even if on the court they do look like such a better team than the opponent. And something else is that Baylor does hurt themselves during games, and people argue that Scott Drew's not as good of a coach as obviously Mark Few. They also play iso ball sometimes, but from what I saw last year, they did move the ball very well. And this year they average 18 assists per game, which is the 11th best in college basketball. So even if sometimes they do get kind of stuck on offense, I still think they can figure that out by March. They did it last year, so I definitely can see them doing it again this year. And I just really believe in their balance on both sides of the ball, and that's honestly why I think Baylor is better than Gonzaga. But there's one last point that I want to highlight, and that's what Mark Titus said about Baylor and Gonzaga and why he thinks Gonzaga is better than Baylor.
Like Gonzaga has three guys. Like Gonzaga, to me, when you watch Gonzaga, it feels like they are playing like an NBA team. Baylor to me plays like a really, really great, I'll say great college basketball team, but still has like the makeup, the DNA of a college basketball team. Gonzaga looks and plays like an NBA team.
Okay, so obviously Mark Titus has a really good point. When I do watch Gonzaga, they do look like an NBA offense. When I watch Baylor, they look like probably one of the best college basketball teams I've seen in recent memory. So I understand that argument, and when Gonzaga gets down, they obviously don't get phased. But I'm still drilling into your head that I think that the way Baylor plays on defense will be able to carry them in the tournament, and I think that if Gonzaga just has an off shooting night, I know I'm banking on that, but I still think that defense prevails, and that's why I think Baylor will be able to possibly beat Gonzaga in the NCAA tournament. I also have many other arguments that I've made throughout the video, but I think that's the one that I really want to drill into your head. Defense wins in March. Remember that, and a team that can score on offense, which I think Baylor obviously can. We've seen plenty times in the past where an NBA level offense in college basketball with a lot of skill players doesn't always win in the NCAA tournament. We've seen that time and time again. I mean, 2015 Kentucky's a perfect example. I mean, that team was stacked with NBA talent, but did they win the national title? No, because a team like Wisconsin came in that could also score the ball, but also defended the ball and even played with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, which I think that Baylor will possibly play with. So again, just because you have NBA talent on your offense doesn't mean that you're going to win the NCAA tournament. That doesn't always work out. And you know what? That's what makes this all fun, is that we can all have different types of opinions, make different types of arguments, and none of it really matters because it's whoever wins the game wins the game. But again, I'm still sticking with Baylor. Very interested to hear what you guys have to say. I will do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about Gonzaga versus Baylor. Who you think would win that matchup? If you're a Baylor fan, let me know down in the comment section what you think about this team and maybe some weaknesses they have. But again, if you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button for me, hit the notification bell, and leave a like on this video. I would really appreciate your support. That will do it for this video. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.